They say the past will pass into oblivion, but sometimes it's just waiting for an opportunity to return, twisting our lives in unexpected ways. I am Jennifer, 33 years old. I always think of myself as a rational, practical person. I don't believe in fate or arranged love affairs from a young age. But then, the past found me in ways I never anticipated. When I was little, my father's family betrothed me to a boy whose face I don't remember. An old traditional arrangement, but my parents didn't take it seriously. They laughed and said that it was just an idle promise of the previous generation. I grew up not thinking anything about it. But somewhere, there is someone else who always remembers that. The boy that year's name was Jimmy. He has a younger twin brother named Maldives. They are as alike as two drops of water. But fate is cruel to Jimmy. At the age of 18, he had a serious accident and lost the ability to walk. From then on, the two brothers' lives turned in two completely different directions. Maldives lives a life full of freedom. Run, jump, laugh, love, pursue big dreams. He has everything Jimmy doesn't have, including a beautiful girlfriend named Natasha. Jimmy is the opposite, trapped in everyone's pity, haunted by what he can't have. Until one day, his parents accidentally mentioned their engagement since childhood. And that changed everything. When Jimmy was 25 years old, a message suddenly appeared in my social media inbox. "Hello, Jennifer. Do you remember me?" I frowned. "A strange account," I read on. "We had a childhood engagement. Do you want to try to get to know each other?" I laughed. A joke? Who would talk like this to a stranger? But when I looked at the profile picture, I realized he looked strangely familiar. After a few messages back and forth, I found out he was the one Jimmy, the boy my grandparents once mentioned. He did not mention his accident. He just talked about the old promise, about the desire to reconnect. I'm curious, but I am also not someone who is easily bound by a promise from decades ago. I don't want to jump into a relationship just because it's prearranged. So I suggest, let's try to get to know each other like normal couples. If we match, we'll go further. If not, let the past rest in peace. He agreed. But there's one thing I don't know. The person I'm talking to, not Jimmy, which is Maldives. After a few months of talking, I realized something was wrong. Jimmy, or rather, who I thought was Jimmy, too enthusiastic with marriage. He kept mentioning the diamond bracelet, which his grandmother gave me, as a betrothal. "It's a symbol of our family," he said. At first I just thought he was someone who valued tradition, but gradually, his words began to make me feel pressured. He sent gifts to my house. Not ordinary gifts, but gifts that remind me of our engagement. A handwritten letter from his grandmother. A family album with photos of me as a child. I didn't even know they had these photos. An ancient ring from his family. It makes me insecure. My family feels the same way. Finally, my father decided that we need to move house, to sever this connection. I also don't object. I feel relieved when this is over, but I didn't know that this was just the beginning. Many years passed. I went to college, focused on my life. I had almost forgotten everything, until one day, Maldives appeared before me. This time, he didn't pretend to be Jimmy anymore. "You're yourself, Maldives." A guy full of confidence, charm, and completely different from what I had imagined of a man with this name. We quickly became close. I no longer feel as imposed as before. No more strange gifts, reminders of the past. This time, everything seems real. And this time, I truly love him. I believe I have found true love. Maldives is nothing like what I imagined before. He is thoughtful, funny, ambitious, and knows how to care for me in special ways. When he proposed, I agreed without thinking too long. What happened in the past no longer matters. We are no longer children bound by the promises of adults. We choose each other, and that's the most important thing. Or at least, I thought so. Everything changed when I found out the diamond necklace had disappeared. At first, I thought I had forgotten it somewhere, but when I checked the security system, I received the message that the bracelet had been moved. Stolen. I opened the navigation app. The bracelet is inside a pawn shop not far from my house. A feeling of anxiety rose within me. I immediately went there, asked to see the jewelry, and then, I couldn't believe my eyes when the pawn shop owner said, the person who sold it was the Maldives. My world, my love, everything I believe in, it's all a lie. I stood dumbfounded in the middle of the pawn shop, a cold feeling spreading throughout my body. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice hoarse. The shop owner, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, nodded. "Sure, he came here a few days ago." It seemed a bit rushed, but I didn't ask much. We just checked the value of the diamond and closed the deal. When the scanning system detected signs of theft, I called the police. I stared at the bracelet in the glass cabinet, which should have been safe in my jewelry box. Maldives sold it. I don't know what to feel first, shock, pain, or anger. I left the pawn shop like a lost soul. I don't know how I drove home. My mind just kept repeating one question. Why did he do this to me? I sat down on the sofa, my heart in disarray. I tried to sort things out, tried to figure out the reason, something that could explain his actions. I opened my phone and texted Maldives. "Where are you?" No response. I tried calling. Subscription. Then a terrible thought flashed into my head. I opened his Instagram, and what I saw made my whole body numb. A new photo was posted just a few hours ago. Maldives is sitting on a lounge chair by the pool, wearing a white shirt, sunglasses, and holding a cocktail. Sitting next to him is Natasha. She smiled brightly in an expensive bikini, her arms embracing Maldives as if they were a perfect couple. Comment line, "Live to the fullest. Maldives, paradise without limits." I couldn't believe my eyes. He doesn't just sell my bracelet, his grandmother's gift to me, but also Natasha used that money to enjoy a luxurious life. My chest tightened. A strong anger flared up. I fell in love with him. I trusted him. And he betrayed me in the most cruel way. I opened the banking app, checking our joint savings account. The money we had both saved for the wedding. Balance. $0. I felt my blood turn cold. I checked the transaction history. The entire amount was withdrawn within the past week. He planned it in advance. He didn't just betray me in love. He also stole my money to run away with someone else. My heart was pounding. My breathing became rapid. I was too stupid when I trusted him, let him control my finances, let him have access to my accounts. But I won't let him escape that easily. I picked up the phone and immediately called the police. "Hello? This is the police department. How can we help?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "I want to report a theft. My diamond necklace was stolen, and I know who took it." The police officer asked for more details. I provide name, address, phone number, along with evidence from the pawn shop and bank transaction history. When I mentioned the security chip attached to the necklace, the police officer paused for a moment before saying, "You have strong enough evidence. We will open an investigation immediately." A moment of relief flashed through my heart. He thought he won, thinking that he could disappear with Natasha without leaving a trace. But he forgot one thing. I'm not the type of person who gives up easily. I'm back on Maldives' Instagram. I know he blocked me, but I still have a way to track him. I created a fake account and followed him remotely. He continued to post photos enjoying life, luxurious meals, branded clothes, expensive bottles of wine, and Natasha, always be with him, smiling as if they were living in a dream. He thought he had severed all ties with me. He didn't know that the police were tracking his every step. 2 days later, I received a call from Detective Chambers, the person in charge of my case. "Jennifer, we have traced the Maldives' whereabouts. He is currently in the Maldives, using money from your joint savings account to spend." I held the phone tightly, trying to control my anger. "We have sent a request to cooperate with the local police. In addition to the crime of theft, we also have evidence that he used illegally appropriated money. We will soon have an arrest warrant." I closed my eyes, feeling satisfied. Maldives thinks he has escaped, but he was too arrogant. He forgot that everything he took left a mark. I stayed awake that night. I'm not just thinking about the theft. I think about everything. How can I love someone like him? Why me? No warning signs seen? But then I realized, he approached me from the beginning with a plan. He doesn't love me. He just wants a diamond bracelet. He wants to get something back he thinks I don't deserve. And when I refused the relationship with Jimmy that year, he considered it a problem. He doesn't want me. He just wants revenge on me. I looked at my phone, where Maldives' Instagram was still lit up with fake happy photos. I took a deep breath, holding my anger tightly inside. He will soon learn that he has made the biggest mistake of his life. I'm not the type of person who likes revenge. But I can't sit still when Maldives betrayed me, stole our shared savings, and then blatantly enjoyed a luxurious life with Natasha. He thought he won. He didn't know that I was more prepared than he thought. The next morning, I drove straight there to Chambers Coroner's office. When I walked in, he was ready with a thick file. "We tracked him down," he said, pushing some papers toward me. I glanced. "The evidence is so clear. Withdrawal records. Any withdrawals from my joint account with Maldives match with lavish deals in the Maldives. History of pawn shops. Pawn shops first. Confirm illegal transactions. GPS data from security chip on the diamond bracelet. Maldives has mortgaged it with its own hands." Chambers tapped his fingers on the table. "We have sent a request to cooperate with the local police in Maldives. Currently, his bank account has been frozen, but he hasn't realized it yet." I looked up. "You mean he's still spending money without knowing that the cash flow is about to be cut off?" Chambers smiled faintly. "That's right. And that's when he'll make a mistake." I opened my phone and logged into the fake account I used to follow Maldives on social media. He still posted photos every day, and boasted about his lavish lifestyle. I scrolled down to the latest photo. Maldives and Natasha sitting on a luxury yacht, holding a glass of champagne, the sunset reflecting on the sea surface. Caption line, "Live to the fullest. Nothing can stop me." I laughed coldly. He didn't know what was about to happen. I sent that photo to Chambers. "Can you track him through these photos?" I asked. Chambers nodded. "We did. These photos helped us determine the exact resort he was staying at." I exhaled, my heart beating fast. The trap is gradually closing. A few days later, Chambers called me. "Jennifer, we have news," he said, sounding a little excited. "I'm listening. We have confirmed with Maldives police that his bank account has been hacked by Freeze completely. That means he couldn't withdraw another penny." I pursed my lips. "Has he found out yet?" "Definitely not yet, but soon. We're watching." I opened Maldives' Instagram, feeling nervous. Last photo was posted 2 days ago. There are no new updates. No more lavish dinners. No more poolside parties. It seemed he was starting to realize something was wrong. The next morning, I received an unexpected message from strange numbers. I frowned and opened it to see. "Jennifer, I need to talk to you." "It's me, Natasha." My heart stopped. "Natasha? Why did she text me?" I hesitated, then texted back. "Why should I believe you?" Almost immediately she replied, "I know Maldives betrayed you, and now he is panicking. I don't want to be involved in this anymore." I bit my lip. Are her words trustworthy? I thought for a moment, then called Chambers. "We're also keeping an eye on Natasha," he said. "If she really wants to help, she could be an important factor." I nodded. Perhaps Natasha is about to do something that even the Maldives did not expect. Just 1 day later, news broke out. Maldives police have officially issued an arrest warrant for Maldives for theft and financial fraud. I stared at the phone screen, reading and reread the message from Chambers. "We caught him. It is only a matter of time before he is extradited here to face the law." I don't know what I'm feeling anymore. Gloating? Relieved? Or just plain an emptiness? I reopened Maldives' Instagram. The latest photo is no longer a picture of him next to Natasha, enjoying a luxurious life. Instead, a tourist took a photo of him being handcuffed by police right at the resort. Caption line, "Don't think that heaven is a place to hide from sin. Karma is real." I laughed. A real smile. Finally, justice has also come. 2 days later, I received a prison visit request from the Maldives itself. I was about to refuse. But then, I realized I needed an answer. I need to know the real reason. So I came. As I entered the prison visiting room, he looked up at me, still a familiar face, but now without the confidence and arrogance. I sat down and looked straight into his eyes. "Why?" I asked, my voice not shaking at all. He smiled faintly. "Do you really want to know?" "I need to know." He leaned back, his eyes darkening. "From the beginning, I never loved you. I don't react. I expected that. I just want a diamond bracelet. It belongs to Jimmy, not you." His words were like a cold knife stabbing straight into my heart. "So, it was all just a plan to get the bracelet back?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He nodded. "You rejected Jimmy, making him feel unworthy. You made him feel useless." I took a deep breath, then stood up. "I don't need to hear any more." But before leaving, I turned back and said one last sentence. "You're wrong, Maldives. You're the one who doesn't deserve anything." I walked out of the prison visiting room, filled with a new decision. I will return the diamond bracelet to the person who truly deserves it. Jimmy. I left the prison with a chaotic mind. Maldives' words still echo in my head. "I never loved you in the first place. I just wanted the diamond bracelet. It belongs to Jimmy, not you." I should have felt pain, but instead, I just felt a strange emptiness. I spent so many years believing in this love, only to discover that it never existed. But there's one thing I know for sure. Jimmy didn't deserve to be hurt by his brother's lies. And if the bracelet really belongs to you, I will bring it back to him yourself. I reopened the old address where Jimmy's family used to live. That house is located in a small town, close to where I live 1,000 miles. It's a long journey, but I don't hesitate. I booked a plane ticket and brought along a diamond bracelet, the item that over the years has become the focus of all the lies. During the flight, I thought about Jimmy. I never really knew him. The person I once knew, talked to, dated, turned out to be Maldives in disguise. So, what kind of person is Jimmy really? Does he know about Maldives' plans? Would he think I was a traitor who abandoned him? I don't have the answer. I just know that I need to meet him to find out the truth. The next afternoon, I stood in front of a large wooden house, surrounded by a green garden. It wasn't like the flashy mansions I had imagined their wealthy family would have. The house looks warm and simple, as if it contained a long history. I took a deep breath, took the diamond bracelet in my hand, and walked to the door. I knocked on the door. No one answered. I knocked again, still silent. I was about to turn away, when from the backyard came a soft sound, the sound of footsteps dragging across the ground. I walked slowly around the house and stopped when I saw it. A man is training himself on difficult steps. He held himself onto the wooden railing, step by step, his legs shaking, but determined. That is Jimmy. There is no Maldives here to support him. There was no one to help him. You're on your own, stand up. I stood still and looked at him for a moment, feeling mixed up in my heart. Jimmy had no idea someone was watching him. He clenched his jaw, sweating, but persisted forward. 1 step, 2 steps. He staggered, almost falling down. Reflexively, I quickly walked over to help him. Careful. Jimmy was startled when he felt my hand hold his arm. He turned to look at me, deep brown eyes, slightly surprised, but not confused. Jennifer? His voice was low, but full of doubt. I nodded, and gently let go when I saw he was standing firmly. Are you okay? I asked. He took a breath, then nodded. I'm fine. It's been a while since anyone helped me up. His words stunned me. Maldives has always been by his side, but now it's gone. I sat down on a nearby wooden chair, feeling my heart heavy. Have you heard about the Maldives? I asked. He nodded. My family knew about it as soon as the police contacted me. But I'm not surprised. I frowned. What do you mean? Jimmy sighed, looking down at his feet. There's always been a part of Maldives that can't accept the unfairness of life. I had an accident, and he didn't. I couldn't go, and he had everything. I think he hated it. He looked at me, his eyes sharper, and he thinks the diamond bracelet should belong to you. I clenched my fist. So you have nothing to do with Maldives' plans? He smiled faintly. If you believed I was involved, you wouldn't be here. You're right. I came here because I believe you are not like the Maldives. I opened the jewelry box, revealing a diamond bracelet sparkling in the afternoon sunlight. You should be the one to keep it, I said, pushing the box toward him. Jimmy looked at it for a long moment, then shook his head. No, Jennifer, I never needed it. I was stunned, but he smiled softly, his eyes shining with sincerity. Do you think I need an object to prove my worth? If I let this bracelet define me, then I'm no different than the Maldives. I didn't say anything, just looked at him for a long time. He is completely different from what I thought. Maldives tried to get the bracelet back because he thought it was the only thing that would help Jimmy retain his dignity. But Jimmy never needed it. He doesn't need a piece of jewelry to prove your worth. He just needs you. We sat on the wooden steps, watching the sunset gradually fall. No need to say much. No explanation needed. For the first time, I felt like I'm really getting to know someone I should have known for a long time. Jimmy and I were destined to be together, but we never had the chance to choose each other. Perhaps now is the time. As I stood up to leave, Jimmy looked at me, a small smile on his lips. Are you in a hurry? He asked. I raised my eyebrows. What do you mean? I have a new habit. Every afternoon I practice taking a short walk in the garden. If you're not busy, would you like to come with me? I hesitated a bit, then smiled. Of course. I held out my hand, not to help him, but to let him walk beside him. He took my hand, and together, we walked. Slowly, but surely. Perhaps this is not the end, which is a real start. We walked together, slowly but steadily. Jimmy's steps were still wobbly, but each step he took carried a strong determination. I could see beads of sweat on his forehead, but he didn't complain, didn't hesitate, just patiently moved forward. What about me? I am no longer the Jennifer I used to be. There was a time in the past when I thought my love for the Maldives was real. I dreamed of a future with him, a life we would build together. But then I realized that love is only one. The illusion is built on lies. Looking at Jimmy now, a man who doesn't need to prove himself with material things, doesn't ask for pity, doesn't need a diamond bracelet to affirm his worth, I understand that I've been going the wrong way for too long. After completing the short walk in the garden, we sat down on an old wooden chair under a big tree. The space is quiet, only the sound of crickets chirping in the night. Jimmy looked at me, his eyes quiet. So, what will you do with the bracelet? I gently touched the box on my lap. At first I thought it belonged to you. He smiled lightly. I never thought like that. I smiled along. I know. But anyway, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Jimmy didn't say anything, just looked at me quietly for a long moment. So, are you going to keep it? I shook my head. No, it doesn't belong to you. And it doesn't belong to you either. It belongs to the past. I opened the box and looked at the sparkling diamond inside. A beautiful object, but it is no longer something that binds my life. I'll sell it, I said, my voice firm. Jimmy raised his eyebrows, but did not object. And what will you use that money for? I looked at him, then laughed lightly. I haven't thought about it, but I'm definitely not going to keep a part of the Maldives in my life anymore. He nodded. That's a good idea. I took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air seep into every cell. This is the freedom I have been looking for so long. We sat there, under the starry sky, talking about everything. Jimmy talks about his childhood in the Maldives. The days when the two brothers were so similar that no one could tell them apart. The childish antics. The backyard bicycle races. Then came the fateful day when the accident happened. I remember that day Maldives cried more than my parents, Jimmy said, his voice thoughtful. He stood by my hospital bed all night, apologizing for not being able to do anything to help me. I listened without interrupting, but gradually, pity turned into jealousy. Maldives couldn't bear to see him become someone the whole family had to take care of, while he continued with his life as if nothing had changed. He paused for a moment, as if those memories still stung him. When my parents mentioned the engagement to you, I didn't think much about it. But Maldives did. He thought that, if I can't have a normal life, then at least I should have something that belongs to me. I was silent, thinking about what he just said. So, everything Maldives did, from pretending to be Jimmy, approaching me, and then betraying me, came from feelings of injustice and envy. I don't know what to feel about that anymore. Just know that I don't care about him anymore. The next morning, I woke up in Jimmy's family's living room, even though he told me I could sleep comfortably as long as I wanted. When I woke up, he had already woken up and was in the yard practicing walking. I looked through the window and saw him walking step by step, persistent and persistent. I smiled. Maybe we are more similar than I ever thought. We were both stuck in the past, bound by old expectations and promises, but now we are finding our own path again. I walked out and stood next to him. Jimmy stopped and looked at me. So soon? I shrugged. The weather is beautiful today. Don't want to waste time. He smiled, then continued walking. I walked beside him, like a long-standing habit. No one said anything, but they both understood. We don't need your grandparents' engagement. We don't need a diamond bracelet to define our relationship. We can decide that ourselves. After breakfast, I prepared to leave. Jimmy walked me to the car. I looked at him, feeling like there was something left unsaid. Jennifer, he called to me, before I opened the car door. I'm back. You can come back any time, he said, smiling warmly. Not because of the bracelet, not because of the past, but because of yourself. I looked at him for a long time, then smiled. You too, Jimmy. I got in the car, started the engine, but this time, I didn't feel like I was running away from anything. I just know that I will come back, because this is not the end. This is just the beginning of something new. I drove back home, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the heaviness of leaving. This trip isn't just about returning an inanimate object. It has been a journey for me to gain a better understanding of the past, about himself, and about Jimmy. I used to think that what happened to the Maldives was the final chapter in my story. But now, I realize it's just a chapter closing for a new story to begin. Returning home, I started to rearrange everything. I contacted an auction house and sold the diamond bracelet. It had been a symbol of bondage, of the expectations imposed on me, of the betrayal I had endured. But now, it's just a gem, no more, no less. I don't need it as a reminder of the past. I don't need it to confirm my worth. I transferred most of the proceeds from selling the bracelet to a charity fund that supports people in difficulty after an accident, as a way to helping people like Jimmy, who are trying to stand on their own 2 feet. I kept a small portion for a trip, not to some luxurious place like the Maldives did, but to a place that has real meaning to me. I decided to go back to Jimmy's town again, not because of the bracelet, but because I want to see him again. This trip is different from the previous one. Last time, I came to face the past. This time, I came to learn a new future. Jimmy picked me up at the train station. When he saw me, he simply smiled, as if he knew for sure that I would come back. We spent the afternoon walking around the small town, talking about things we had never had the chance to share before. I told him about my years, about the things I used to believe but then realized they weren't true. He told me about the difficulties he faced after the accident, about his low self-esteem, and about the years when he felt like he was just a burden. I used to hate the Maldives, he admitted, not because he can do things that I can't, but because he thinks I need to be protected. I don't need someone to protect me. I just need a chance to stand up for myself. I listened, understood. You've never needed a bracelet to affirm your worth, just like I've never needed an engagement promise to define my life. We have all come a long way to get here. The following days I stayed in town longer than expected. We spent time together, cooking, walking, chatting under the streetlights as night fell. There is no rush. There are no expectations, just 2 people who have been hurt and are trying to heal. Gradually I realized my feelings for Jimmy were unlike anything I had ever experienced. Not the passionate fervor that I had with the Maldives, not the expectation of a predetermined future, which is a deep trust, a feeling of security, Something much more real. One evening, as we sat on the steps of our house looking up at the starry sky, Jimmy suddenly asked, "How long will you stay here?" I smiled. "How long do you want me to stay?" He turned to look at me, his eyes serious. "A little longer. Or maybe, forever?" My heart beat strongly. But this time, it wasn't confusion or worry, which is certainty. I've come too far looking for something I thought I'd lost. But really, I'm just finding your way back home. And perhaps, home is where Jimmy is. The next morning, I walked out into the garden, where Jimmy was practicing walking as usual. But this time, when I approached, he no longer staggered. He turned to me, a bright smile on his lips. "You've gone further than yesterday." I grabbed his hand and squeezed it gently. "And tomorrow I'll go even further." He nodded. "With you?" I laugh. Of course. Our past is not a fairy tale. It was full of pain, misunderstandings, and people who tried to prevent us from finding each other. But in the end, we're still standing here, with a future waiting ahead. No more grandparents' engagement, no more strings-attached gifts, only left a choice of our own. I left town after a week, but this time, it didn't feel like I was going away. I know that I will come back. And when I come back, I will no longer be someone running away from the past. It's a person who is moving towards their own future. When I got in the car, I turned to Jimmy and smiled. "I'll be back soon." He took my hand and squeezed it gently. "I know. We don't need a diamond bracelet to bind each other. We only need one thing, a real promise. A promise not to be forced by anyone else. A promise that comes from my heart. And this time, I know that I made the right choice."